League 0 Round 5, Silverstone Shakedown, where speed meets suspense and Wi-Fi woes. Ladies and gentlemen, motorsport aficionados, and those who accidentally tuned in, welcome to the hallowed grounds of Silverstone Circuit. Today, the League 0 drivers took on this iconic track, bringing with them a blend of sheer talent, questionable decisions, and perhaps a few unresolved grudges from their last online debates about fiber optics and racing etiquette. As the drivers lined up on the grid, you could almost hear the collective sigh of relief that, for once, Paul, TX141 Walsh, managed to get the broadcast up without his computer spontaneously combusting. Perhaps Antonio Bianchi's replay files finally found their way through the labyrinthine iRacing update servers. Speaking of which, word in the paddock is that the latest update was so massive, some drivers considered hiring Sherpas to guide them through the download process. But back to the race. The lights went out, and immediately, chaos ensued. Adam Merchant decided that P8 was merely a suggestion and promptly overtook not one but two drivers, zooming past Shaji Zuhair and then making Felipe Sarkis wonder if his accelerator pedal was connected to anything at all. Merchant was a man on a mission, carving through the field like a hot knife through butter, or perhaps like an iRacing update slicing through your monthly data cap. Meanwhile, Antonio Bianchi, our resident steward and part-time internet service critic, made a swift move on Gareth McAllister for P13. Rumour has it that Antonio was still smarting from having to dish out penalties in the previous races, and nothing soothes the soul like a well-timed overtake. But spare a thought for Ryan Thibault. Sector 1 seemed to have it in for him, as he ran into trouble not once, not twice, but 3 times on the very first lap. One can only assume he was attempting to dodge leftover data packets from the iRacing servers. The battle at the front intensified. Jaden Calloway, showing the kind of pace that makes you wonder if he found an extra gear in the paddock, overtook Gabriel Hopp for P2. Hopp, possibly still reeling from the realization that he'd have to update his iRacing software again next week, couldn't mount an immediate challenge. Further back, Arturo Mayorga had a bit of a moment in Sector 1. Perhaps he was pondering the existential dread of unexpected collisions due to netcode issues, as discussed in last night's spirited debate on the League 0 Discord channel. Pit stops already? No, not strategy, damage control. Gareth McAllister darted into the pits, emerging in P17, and probably questioning his life choices. Antonio Bianchi also made an early stop, rejoining in P9. One might think that as the one who hands out penalties, he'd try to avoid situations requiring pit stops this early. But then again, maybe he was just double-checking that his incident reports were printing correctly. Lap 5, a thrilling duel unfolded between Elliot Corti and Michael Fairchild for P6. They swapped positions more often than drivers swap excuses for incidents. Fairchild, ever the gentleman, might have been recalling his own advice about managing downloads and thought he'd let Elliot have a go at leading, for a while at least. The battle for P5 became the race's focal point. Elliot and Delmas Leo 2 engaged in a dance that made the Strictly Come Dancing judges weep with joy. Overtake after overtake, they demonstrated that when it comes to racing and downloading massive updates, persistence is key. Lap 9, the saga of Gabriel Hoppy and Michael Fairchild continued. Trading P7 back and forth, it was as if they were trying to decide who would take the blame for the next netcode-induced collision. Ultimately, Gabriel ran into trouble in Sector 2, perhaps after receiving one of Antonio's famed incident reports mid-race. Pit stop pandemonium. Around lap 10, the pit lane became busier than the iRacing forums after an update announcement. Drivers darted in and out, some for tyres, others possibly checking to see if Paul Walsh had managed to find the instant replay button yet. Lap 11. Drama unfolded as both Gail Rolls and Kyle Deckard encountered issues in Sector 3. Maybe they were distracted by the thought of having to explain themselves to Bianchi later, or worse, facing another lengthy download when they got home. Disaster struck for Elliot Corti. Running into trouble in Sector 1, he saw his hard-fought gains slipping away. Was it fatigue, mechanical failure, Or perhaps the sheer weight of the latest iRacing patch pressing down on his car? We'll never know. Final laps. As the dust settled, or more accurately, as the data packets finally aligned, one driver stood head and shoulders above the rest. Adam Merchant crossed the line to claim victory, his performance smoother than a fibre optic connection in an area with gigabit internet. Merchant's dominance was unquestionable. Perhaps he managed to avoid all those pesky netcode issues that plagued his rivals. Hot on his heels, though never quite close enough, was Jaden Calloway. Finishing in P2, he showcased consistency and speed, two attributes as rare in League Zero as an iRacing update that doesn't require a second mortgage to download. And in a well-deserved P3, we find none other than Shaji Zuhair. After spending the week discussing the merits of various internet service providers, it's heartening to see Shaji's connection held firm, both in bandwidth and on the track. Notable mentions. Felipe Sarkic took P4, perhaps still wondering how Merchant managed to overtake him so effortlessly on lap 1. Maybe time to check for a software update on that accelerator. Delmas secured P5 after his tango with Elliott, proving that persistence pays off, or that Elliott's Sector 1 mishap was a timely gift. Antonio Bianchi finishing in P6 might have been a bit lower than he'd like, especially given his penchant for upholding standards. Perhaps handing out penalties is more tiring than we thought. Elliott Court recovered to P7, a respectable finish considering his earlier troubles. Maybe next time he'll skip the Sector 1 sightseeing tour. Michael Fairchild, after an eventful race, ended in P11. Not quite the result he'd hoped for, but at least he can take solace in knowing he's contributed significantly to the discussions on download strategies and unexpected collisions. As the drivers parked their cars and began the post-race debriefs, you could feel the camaraderie and the thinly veiled jabs flowing freely. The conversations no doubt drifted back to the iRacing update frustrations, with some probably suggesting that the next league investment should be in a collective high-speed server. Paul Walsh, having successfully broadcasted the race without major hiccups, could finally breathe easy. Though one suspects he's already bracing himself for the next barrage of incident reports from Antonio, complete with time penalties and point deductions that would make even the most hardened racer wince. In the end, Round 5 at Silverstone was a testament to the spirit of League Zero, fast, unpredictable, and peppered with enough online banter to keep things deliciously spicy. As we look forward to the next round, one can only hope that the iRacing updates take a week off, that the netcode behaves itself, and that the drivers continue to provide us with racing that's as entertaining as their Discord discussions. Until then, remember, in racing, as in software updates, patience is a virtue, but outright speed wins the day.